Some names are whispered throughout history, not because of what they built, but because of what they destroyed. They are the ultimate mystery, the human monsters who walked among us. These individuals didn't just break the rules, they shattered our sense of security. But why do we remember them? What makes one dark figure become a legend, while others are forgotten? We've analyzed the patterns from the foggy streets of London to the quiet suburbs of Chicago. The answer is a chilling mix of media frenzy, psychological terror, and the horrifying realization that the monster is often someone you know. It all starts with the ultimate blueprint for infamy: the mystery. The one who gets away. In 1888, London's Whitechapel district was gripped by an icy, suffocating fear. A shadowy figure known only as Jack the Ripper was targeting women in the dark, foggy streets. The acts were brutal, with the victims' bodies left in horrifying ways. But what elevated this case to a global legend wasn't just the panic, it was the audacity. You see, the figure, or someone claiming to be him, began sending taunting letters to the police and the press. He mocked their efforts, he gave himself his famous nickname, and he turned the whole horrifying episode into a dark, public game. And then, as suddenly as he appeared, he vanished. The case was never solved. This lack of an ending created an information vacuum, a blank space that has been filled for over a century with countless theories, books, and films. He became the archetype for the modern monster, all because we never found out who he was. But this wasn't the last time this exact pattern would play out. Fast forward to the late 1960s in Northern California. A new phantom emerged, one who also loved the game and the spotlight. He called himself the Zodiac. He didn't just leave a trail of 5 confirmed victims. He sent a barrage of cryptic letters and complex ciphers to newspapers, claiming he had taken as many as 37 lives. He taunted the police, he demanded his ciphers be published on the front page, and, like the Ripper, he was never identified. These two men proved the first rule of infamy. A monster we can't identify is the most terrifying of all because he could be anyone, anywhere. But what about the monsters we could see, the ones who smiled right at us? The most chilling figures in history are often the ones who blended in perfectly. Ted Bundy completely shattered the public's perception of what evil looks like. In the 1970s, he operated across multiple states, preying on young women, often college students. But he wasn't a shadowy figure lurking in the dark. He was handsome, charismatic, educated, and well-spoken. Now, get this. He would use his charm as his primary weapon. He would often fake an injury, wearing a cast or a sling, to ask women for help carrying books to his car. It was a simple, effective lure that played on their kindness. He escaped custody not once, but twice, continuing his spree even while on the run. His trial became a national media circus. He acted as his own lawyer, and his good looks and confidence earned him a disturbing number of fans, which was a horrifying spectacle for the victims' families. Bundy's infamy comes from this terrifying, stark contrast: the handsome, smart man who was a true, cold-blooded monster. And then there was John Wayne Gacy. He was the ultimate neighbor. He was an active, well-liked figure in his Chicago community. He knew local politicians, he ran his own business, and he even performed at children's parties and charity events as Pogo the Clown. He was a symbol of suburban trust and friendliness. But beneath his home, he had created a secret, silent graveyard. Throughout the 1970s, Gacy targeted young men and boys. When his House of Horrors was finally discovered, and the remains of 33 victims were found, most of them buried in his crawl space, it sent a shockwave of disbelief through the entire nation. The lethal clown became a permanent, chilling symbol of the evil that can hide behind a friendly smile and a painted face. Both men proved that the most dangerous mask isn't one of rubber, but one of normalcy. But some monsters don't bother to hide their tastes at all. Sometimes infamy isn't about the mystery or the mask. It comes from actions so grotesque, so far outside the bounds of human behavior. They seem to belong in a horror movie. In 1991, the world learned the name Jeffrey Dahmer, and it has never been forgotten. From 1978 to 91, he preyed on 17 young men, mostly men of color, in Milwaukee. His story became infamous not just because of the lives he ended, but because of what he did afterward. When police finally entered his apartment after a victim escaped, they found a personal museum of horror. He was experimenting with his victims' remains, preserving body parts and keeping gruesome souvenirs. The details were so shocking, so far beyond what most people could comprehend, that it cemented his name as a synonym for pure, twisted evil. His case also raised terrible questions about how he was able to operate for so long, especially since many of his victims were from marginalized communities whose disappearances were not taken seriously. But Dahmer's story had a spiritual predecessor, a case that laid the groundwork for our modern fascination with the bizarre. Go back to 1950s Wisconsin, to a quiet, isolated farmer named Ed Gein. When authorities investigated his property after a local woman went missing, they found only 2 confirmed victims. But what made Gein a legend of horror was his hobby. Gein was a grave robber. He exhumed bodies from local cemeteries and used the remains to create household items. We're talking about lampshades, bowls, and even a suit made from human skin. Gein's acts were so profoundly bizarre that he became the direct inspiration for some of cinema's greatest monsters. Norman Bates in Psycho and Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. These men were driven by dark, private compulsions, but some are driven by something far more common: greed. We are taught from a young age to trust certain people, our doctors, our community leaders. But what happens when that trust is not just broken, but used as a weapon? Meet Harold Shipman, a respected British family doctor. From 1975 to 1998, the man known as Dr. Death used his trusted position to end the lives of his patients. His method was chillingly simple. He would visit his patients, mostly elderly women, in their own homes and administer a lethal injection. Because he was their doctor, no one suspected a thing. For decades, he would sign the death certificates himself, often citing old age. He was finally caught after he clumsily forged the will of one of his victims, leaving everything to himself. An official inquiry later estimated his total victim count to be around 218, with some believing it could be as high as 250. His infamy comes from the sheer, unthinkable scale of his betrayal. Now, imagine that betrayal on an industrial, entrepreneurial scale. Enter H.H. Holmes. During the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, Holmes built a hotel that was later nicknamed the Murder Castle. It was a 3-story marvel of dark engineering. The hotel was a custom-built labyrinth of windowless rooms, secret passages, trapdoors, soundproofed chambers, and gas lines, all of which could be controlled from his office. He would lure guests, mostly women, into his maze. He also targeted employees and business associates for insurance scams. He would trap them, dispatch them, and then use a dumbwaiter to send the remains to the basement, which was equipped with a dissecting table and a crematorium. He confessed to 27 acts, but the true number is unknown and could be as high as 200. Holmes wasn't just a criminal. He was a horrifying entrepreneur of evil. These figures operated within society, but some nightmares are so vast, they span entire continents. Some stories are infamous because they feel endless, unfathomable, and chillingly unsolved. In the 1970s and 80s, South America was haunted by a man known as the Monster of the Andes, Pedro Lopez. He confessed to ending the lives of over 300 young girls across Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. He was apprehended in 1983 after a failed attempt to abduct a girl. But here's the real kicker. Despite being convicted for the harm of over 100 individuals, he was released in 1998. His current whereabouts are completely, terrifyingly unknown. His infamy comes from this massive victim count, one of the largest in history, combined with the horrifying, unanswered question: is the most prolific monster in modern history still out there? But this isn't just a modern problem. Back in the early 1900s, a Norwegian-American woman named Belle Gunness ran a farm in Indiana. She placed Lonely Hearts ads in newspapers, luring lonely middle-aged men with the promise of marriage and wealth. They were told to sell their belongings and bring the cash to her farm. One by one, they would arrive and then vanish. She was taking their money and their lives, disposing of the remains on her hog farm. In 1908, her entire farmhouse burned to the ground. Inside, authorities found the remains of her children. They also found the remains of dozens of people, all of her suitors buried in the yard. But a body thought to be Belle's was suspiciously unidentifiable. Did she perish in the fire? Or did she stage the whole thing, take the money, and walk away to start a new life? Like the Ripper, her story endures because we don't know the ending. So, what is it? What's the secret code that turns a criminal into an icon of terror? It's not just the act itself. When you look at all these cases together, a terrifying formula for infamy emerges. It's the unsolved mystery of Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac, leaving a blank page for our worst fears to write on. It's the horrifying contrast of Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy, the mask of sanity that proves evil can look just like us. It's the unthinkable depravity of Dahmer and Gain. Acts so far outside the human experience, they become the stuff of horror legend. It's the ultimate betrayal of Shipman and Holmes, who turned positions of trust into weapons. And it's the unfathomable scale and mystery of Lopez and Gunness, leaving us with the chilling feeling that the story isn't truly over. These figures aren't just historical footnotes. They are the boogeymen we remember, personifications of our deepest fears, the stranger in the dark, the friend with a secret, the doctor we trust, and the monster who simply gets away. How many more are out there, hiding behind a mask right now? Hit like and subscribe if you want more secrets revealed.